Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us in this edition of a video series, which we have named as Meeting Changing Expectations of a Modernized Workplace. I am glad and honored to host Mr. Casey Tavadia with us, who is CIO of Bombay Stock Exchange. And we also have Mr. Stephen Secura, Director Enterprise Business, Lenovo. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us today. Before I go on to the question answer session and everything, I just want to do some context setting here. We have ourselves witnessed over the last 2-3 years that the whole dynamics of work, workplace, and workforce has been upended, right? And the nature of work has changed. What we used to define as workplace has changed over the past few years. It could be work from home, it could be work from anywhere, or it could be work from office as well, right? And the workforce criteria has also changed. The access to workforce has increased. The definitions of workforce has broadened, and keeping all this in mind, the very nature of transformation, what organizations were heading for, has changed. The definition of transformation has changed largely, right? And from our research, we know for a fact that one of the primary pillars for any successful transformation is the leadership itself, right? So, Mr. Casey, I would like to begin here with you, that as a leader, the organization comes in later. As a leader, how has been your, transformation journey, and how would you see what is the path that you have come through so far, and how have you evolved over the years, especially heading such a prestigious organization that you are leading from the front. Over to you, Mr. Casey. How has it been so far?
The journey for BSc, I'm almost more than 11 years now heading this function, and it's a very we have come a very long way from where we were. And typically, BSc was a it's like almost now 150-year-old organization. Okay, and it's one of the oldest organizations, and automation also was quite old there. Means I would say digitalization or computerization or whatever you call, it was at a very the way it was run was very different than the way it is being run now. So it is like, if you want to succeed, you have to make your own destiny. That's what we believe in, and I believe in. You can't have your destinies written by the vendors. Okay, and coming and those days, even today, there's a lot of outsourcing and kind of buzzwords going around in the market, even in those times. So the only business what people were doing was outsourcing it to somebody. So you cannot outsource your responsibility. That's what I believe in. Okay. So you can get some people to do your work, but ultimately it's your own responsibility. So I think so we have brought in this kind of change with the new management in BSc. The entire leadership in BSc, right from the believes in sort of do it yourself. Okay. So I think so that is the biggest transformation that we have brought into BSc, that do it yourself and outsource resources for mind and hands and feet support or some other special intellect. So I think that has transformed BSc to what it is from a decade ago. Today we are the leaders as far as in the thought leaders in technology adoption, leading from the front, and we have set up so many niche technologies ourselves, and we are quite proud of it. We did it all ourselves. So that is where you take the pride in leading from the front, and that's where once you lead from the front, it is team building is also very easy. You don't have to give examples to anybody. Look at them, others are doing it. Is if I can do, you can also do it. Is simple. So sending the message down is very simple.
So absolutely. Mr. Casey, very well said. I think the best leadership is to do the walk the talk, right? And I think that's what you're messaging. And no wonder, because see, so you are leading an organization where it's not just the nation looking at you. I think the whole world is looking at the Bombay Stock Exchange at all times.
Before this tagline, BSc had a tagline, the Sensei the world watches.
Oh, oh,
Okay.
great. Yeah.
So after that, we changed the experience to new. Like when we came in, so now it's like, let's experience the new. So it's not only the nation, the entire world watches BSc, like the Sensex.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mr. Casey, you just hit the nail because when I said leadership was one of the primary pillars of any transformation, okay, what you just elicited right now is that you are building that culture which percolates throughout the organization, right? And that culture is very essential to keep the organization together. Moving from your personal journey, of course. Okay, we come to your organization bit, right? This must not have been as easy as you make it sound right now. Okay, this whole do it yourself job and building niche applications and in-house IPs that you have curated. How has been the organizational journey, and what there might have been challenges, there might have been pitfalls that you had to tread through. So any, if you could throw some light on that as well.
See, like I said earlier, when BSc, like when I joined in, BSc was technically running, if you see our trading system was running mostly on proprietary technologies. Like again, since in those times, since BSc didn't have any technology leadership or skill in that, so everything was outsourced to some vendors to run it. So it is the vendors decided the technology, vendors decided what softwares they will use, vendors decided how they will manage it, right? And it was, if the technology OEM was not able to support it, the business would not get what they want, because it was just said it is not possible, and business had to say no. Okay, fine. This entire paradigm we have shifted it the other way around. We have said, okay, we'll never say no to business, and we'll bring in the technology what the business wants. See, that is a whole cultural shift. So when we are doing a trading system migration, so we migrated our trading system from completely on proprietary technology to complete open stack. Okay. So from a proprietary hardware, like we used to run on non-stop machines. In those days, it was the Compacts, and then it became HP non-stop. But it was absolutely proprietary. But it lived to its name. There was nothing wrong with those technologies. It was non-stop. It worked non-stop for 10, 20 years. Those and the hardware were of there. But it had its own limitation. It could not perform with the speed which we wanted it. Making changes was very difficult. And everything associated to that, see, once you are in a non-proprietary architecture, everything around it also has a proprietary versus a commodity hardware. So if this is X, that will cost you 10X. Then everything supporting, you require 10 applications, additional support. Each of them is also 10X. So your cost of running is compounding multifold. So you have to break this whole thing. Right? It was like a sort of a jinx. Like, how do you break the puzzle? Like, there's such a large monolithic thing. It was built over 10, 12 years, 15 years. Like, so much of effort was put in. And there was a dilemma. Like, no, why do you want to touch which is working, which is not broken? Okay. There was very strong in the board also. Okay, let us not touch it. Like, we were doing a lot of new things and then new architecture, commodity hardware, but nobody wanted to touch the trading engine piece. And we said the competition was doing faster than us at that point in time. So our
Okay.
philosophy that we will die a natural death or a fast death. Like, no, if you don't change. So there's a choice whether you want to die fast or die slow. Okay.
I'm sure it must not have been that easy. So, Mr.
Yeah.
Casey, while you were doing all of this, and I'm sure the pandemic hit, and we were just having this conversation before also, right? That many of your workforce is still working from home, and you're still having to, deal with this hybrid model, right? And something you're leading something so critical, right? So there might have been nuances that you might have to, meet and mitigate while this whole pandemic also hit you. And most importantly, I think security might have been a very, very critical piece to have
Absolutely.
been addressed, right? How did you go about managing this hybrid workplace and the
So,
security aspects associated?
okay. So we had one basic philosophy call, which I mean, see, at that point in time, though, it's also important to do the right calls at the right time. It's very important, and because this was something which was absolutely unexpected, which hit all of us. It's not only to the BSc. So what we took a call that at no cost. our information as assets will go out, like the desktops or the compute endpoints will not go out of the organization because they themselves contain a lot of information. A lot of people did send desktops to the people homes, like in bankings and all. And then we heard that they had challenges connecting to their ERPs and SAPs, and the responses are slower, services are disrupted, blah, blah, blah. We took a conscious call that come what may will not disrupt the internal systems. We'll try and give people access to the desktops from their homes in a secured manner so that the performance of the system is not at all impacted. And that conscious call helped us in running the exchange without any glitch, okay, for even a single second in this entire pandemic scenario. Okay, so we ensured that we had secured way of connecting the people over the VPN to their individual desktop. We put all the security policies in place so that nobody can reach anybody else's desktop except his own desktop. Right now, so these are the kind of, so it was a lot of laborious work which we had to do, and the team was working very very hard, I would say, like and one of the biggest lessons what the pandemic is shown is they've actually taught people how to work remotely, including
Absolutely.
the IT staff, including the IT staff, Victor. Because till it happened, like no, honestly, BSc never had a policy of work from home. So people always asked us, what was your policy? I said, we had a policy of work from home, which stated only one line that you cannot work from home. Okay. Okay, it's a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
simple policy. So, but a policy, what policy does not mean, policy means a statement, what you can do. So you cannot work. From there, we have gone, like everybody has to work from home. So this all we had done was only 1 or 2% of the staff, which had the critical engineering stuff. Like you require people to run the data center, you require people to start and stop the ACs, the DGs, you have to refill petrol, diesel, and keep. See, these are all manual tasks which cannot be uh, done remotely, or you have to fix a computer, like start stop physically. You'll go and so only these kind of people were working in the office. So and they were kept in a hotel close to BSc so that they can just walk in, walk out. And we had a 2 weeks, 3 weeks shifts. So for 3 weeks, one team will stay, then another team will come. They will stay for 3 weeks in a hotel, and the rest. So that's how this entire engagement has happened. So Friday we were told, and then we were all running around. We are not sure whether Monday we are supposed to start this exchange or not. And if you have to start, then how will you start? It was so, but I think our team did a fantastic job, and I'm quite proud that we managed to run it very, very efficiently without any technical glitches in this entire pandemic. In fact, what we did during the pandemic was the biggest challenge. We did not, it was not only running the exchange BAU as like business as usual, we entirely migrated so many of our migration projects which were held up, which were in, so we were running something we had started in January and we thought by March, April we'll finish. And suddenly when we came to the first week of March, second week of March, we were told it's a shutdown. So it was like our migration was half in process. But because of this way we tuned our way of working. Even the biggest migration was storage, like in an organization. We could migrate that continuously remotely, working continuously remotely and making it successful. So we kept our business plan. We did not slide our business plans to next year or did not defer any of our migrations to the next year. All what was planned as planned got executed as planned, even working remotely. So that was, I think, the biggest achievement for BSc.
It's highly commendable, Mr. Casey, what you just said, that because people just managed to keep their lights on, and here you were also, going ahead, treading fast on your other plans. Stephen, I come to you here. I think what Mr. Casey just elicited, this will be very close to your heart because you would be, helping organizations worldwide solutioning such use cases that Mr. Casey just elicited. How do you see the trends, and what is it, what has how and when Lenovo has must have helped so many other organizations solve such problems that Mr. Casey elicited. Over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, I think I was listening to Mr. Kersey, very aptly, and I could relate. the same challenges thrown at us by so many CIOs. Now what happened is, I'll take a minute or two just to give the context. So whatever happened during the pandemic happened suddenly and drastic, drastic change and sudden change. It did not give us time to probably fix this, so we had to do on the go. Now, what happened is that thousands of employees working, or lakhs of employees working in a secured environment within the campus were suddenly, thrown out and were asked to work from home. At the same time, so what is happening is secured environment is changing to an unsecured open environment, and organizations expected that there should be no drop in productivity or effectiveness. So how do we manage this? And that's where I think Lenovo helped, as you rightly said. We realize that it is devices as well as connectivity, security, manageability, so many things coming together. And from a place which is concentrated in a secure office environment and a campus to distributed around the length and breadth of the country, some employees working from home at the same time, maybe some of them later working from public spaces, open spaces. uh, we had smart devices. We launched smart devices. Our laptops are AI enabled, which had security features inbuilt. We had secured Wi-Fi enablement in our devices, which helped. Like for example, there are small features which go a long way to I think assure CIOs like Mr. Kersey that they are in their data is in safe hands with the Lenovo devices. For example, like if an employee is working from home or an open space, we have cameras, and our cameras have something called secured features which enables to facial recognition. Somebody's peering on your shoulders and looking over confidential information. The user gets an alert. There are in built privacy filters. And then when we look at managing these devices just spread out across the country, we offered them a completely managed solution. We said we have thousands of engineers who are there who can reach out to your employees at their residences, which your team may not be able to do that. And these were some of the offerings. Also, when you look at the second phase which is happening now, Sumedha, and that is like when employees are coming back and organizations probably are looking at hybrid policies, then we have a return to office. Some of the organizations have let go of their offices, and some of them are saying how best to optimize their workspace. We again have solutions. So we are not only devices, we are also having smart solutions. One of them, like, which would be useful for CIOs like Mr. Kersey when they look for return to office scenario, is a flexible smart office solution. Now this solution has features like, and this is completely deployed by Lenovo. It's a turnkey solution. We deploy it, we manage it, we run for the organization, and these are features like optimum use of the office space, smart booking of open spaces, smart data analytics of how much your space is being used, and then that helps to optimize the use of office space. Also helps in designing smart offices. So these are also some of the solutions which can be used now.
Brilliant, Stephen. I think you kind of have had a 360-degree approach to what you're providing from Lenovo, because people keep talking about transformation, right? And people use big buzzwords. But what transformation is actually seeking to do, and where you are helping, if I can encapsulate it, is that you are helping companies retain and define who they are. So you're safeguarding, right? And how they operate, you're helping them there. And most importantly, how do they grow from here? That's what you just, like, if I say your return to office solution is that, how, what's the path going forward, right? So I think this is brilliant. I think you're just like a one-stop shop for all these solutions. When I come to the how they grow part, Mr. Casey, I would want to come back to you here. We have spoken about how your journey has been at a personal level, how your organization has come through this far, right? more interesting, and I can't, I'm just being greedy. I keep going back to Mr. Casey. I don't want to miss this opportunity. What is your blueprint for the future? How do you make your organization future ready? Because this pandemic is here to stay. It will have its versions. It will come and go, and we just need to learn to live with it. So, what's your future ready blueprint? How are you mapping it? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we are already doing some sort of like a high level strategy thinking already in that area. Is you need to define functions which require a physical presence in office. You have to identify functions which cannot function without being in office. Rest everything can work from anywhere in the world. Okay. Once you have that identified blueprint ready in your organization, then the selection of the technologies becomes very simple because you can't have, like he said, dual and all sophisticated technologies for everybody in the organization. So we need, like, it's not like one code fits all. Like, no, you'll have to design technologies based on the applicability, functional applicability to the organization. So I think so that is very, very important to identify. Like, for example, if it's a software in a company and where the software development teams also, there are two ways of looking at it because while the software development can happen remotely because the developer requires just a resource to work on. Okay. Whereas if it's versus a compliance function or an accounts function or a supervisory function where you need to interact with the opposite person within the teams so much physically, right? So we need to identify these kind of areas where what function within the organization needs an interaction so that maybe you will have functions that they can come to office as and when required, but the others can always work from home and come only when called for, something like that. So we'll have to think to this kind of, so that will help us. In fact, we are seeing in the software industry where we are hiring people, and earlier the asks for discussions were on salaries and like how much you can pay. Nowadays, I think I'm seeing people asking, can I work from home? Only then I'm interested.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So it's become a sort of a negotiation point. It's very with the youngsters and all that. So it's so we'll have to accept that actually and move ahead and find solutions for that rather than fighting it over. That's what the future will be.
I think what you just said, Mr. Casey, I think even we are seeing that in our research. Okay, so this is to Stephen as well that there was this era where we were looking for customizable software or solutions, right? What today organizations are actually seeking is not customizable but configurable, because every organization is different. Just a customizable attribute is not even meeting the asks. What, like Mr. Casey just said, that the ask of BSc could be very different from a bank. However, we are looking at partners such as Lenovo to give us configurable solutions, and help us transcend these difficult times and set the course for the future once for all, because this is not a one time approach. It is ongoing. It is here to stay. So Stephen, your closing comments on this.
I think Lenovo is in a sweet spot, and we look forward, to collaborate with CIOs like Mr. Kersey, where we would like to become, partners in their growth journey and see how best we, as you rightly said, Sumedu, consult them and probably look at the overall total life cycle process of not only the assets, also for solutions where we can help them on their strategy, their design on how best IT can enable their organization to perform better. That's what I would say is the vision of Lenovo. So not only to be just a piece in their what do you call IT what do you call infrastructure, but to be a partner rather in their growth journey on the IT journey.
Great, great. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for having such an intriguing conversation today. I am completely humbled and honored to have you both here. I have my own takeaways, and knowing, getting to know Bombay Stock Exchange and the offerings of Lenovo. This is very, very eye-opening.